Well, hello there. How are you doing? I don't know if you're listening to this or not. I really don't know if anybody's listening to this. This is Chris of the Kris and Kristine Show, one half of the Kris and Kristine Show. And yeah, a lot has happened since we stopped making episodes over a year ago on this podcast here. First things first, this podcast is no longer going to be recorded. This podcast has come to an end. There are not going to be any future episodes coming from the Kris and Kristine Show. And I'll explain a little bit why, but we sort of pod faded. I think most shows that started probably in the great sum of the 2020 surge of shows that happened. A lot of shows, were hot and heavy because, obviously you're home, you got time available because COVID and things like that. Most people were working from home. So, podcasting became really hot during the 2020 surge. And I think it made it really easy to record and at the same time interview other shows, interview other podcasters, and also interview other guests. And guests were fine. They came on, they were great. We did a lot of guest interviews on this show. When I first started this podcast, I didn't have any idea that it would go past maybe 3 or 5 episodes. And my love of radio and my love of content creation really kind of took the best of me because I got swept up in this whole world of podcasting so quickly. And I wanted to know how to make a podcast, how to have guests on there, how to make it all sound great, how to make sure we can make it everything very, very popular, I guess, so to speak. I mean, the only thing I really had going into this was my love of regular like morning radio. So when I designed the Kris and Kristine show, it basically was like my own version in my mind, I guess, of what I could imagine a morning radio of our own, like our own morning show, the Kris and Kristine Show morning show. Like, what would that sound like? What would it be? How would we actually produce it? Like, how could I do all that stuff just from my, or I guess our, primary bedroom at the house at the time, at the old house with the old computer, using old equipment that was probably, very cheap. I picked up on Amazon, just kind of like, keeping this thing together as a podcast and then bringing on guests and trying to figure out, well, how am I going to make the guests happen? How are we going to interview them? How are we going to make sure the audio all sounds great without spending tons and tons of money on gear and extra stuff? It was all this fun, this fun project I had in my mind and kind of got carried away. And I think it got so carried away that I kept pushing more and more episodes. And Christine was just really busy. And for her, the podcast at the beginning, it seemed, from my perspective, it seemed like a fun thing that was something we both really, really liked doing. But I think what happens when you have a co host, especially if you're in a relationship with that co host, is that things can sometimes you bump heads and sometimes the priority of the relationship gets put like more like on the back burner really. And the podcast, or at least my thought of trying to create the podcast and trying to keep it going and trying to try new things and experiment a lot and meet new friends along the way within the podcasting space, that sometimes things suffer. And the thing that kind of suffered was our relationship. We bumped heads a lot. Schedules got in the way. I was frustrated because I couldn't deliver when I promised an episode out every single week. And then also when we had guests that were booked for a certain day and we couldn't interview them for whatever reason. And those reasons started getting, more and more. We had more and more excuses why we couldn't record episodes, or more excuses why we couldn't have a guest on that week. And I think I got carried away. I got swept away in all of the podcasting glitter. I guess my eyes got too big and I just got super excited. And the reason why I'm on here today right now is um because the show is officially going to be over, but I don't want all those episodes to just die off and just not exist anywhere. So, of course, I've backed up every single thing on my computer. In fact, all the original episodes are still on the old computer. They're still there, which I still have that computer, although I don't really use it. It's not plugged in or anything. I just feel like since so much stuff is on there, like I can't just get rid of it. And then I've got backup drives, and then I've got everything was forwarded over to YouTube a little while ago. So all the audio podcast stuff was being uploaded to YouTube. So our YouTube channel had everything there too. And then, of course, I was paying a subscription for SoundCloud as our media host, which I do not recommend using SoundCloud as a podcast media host. But hey, when I got started doing the podcast, I had no idea about what an RSS feed is or a podcast media host, or I didn't know like any of that stuff. That was all foreign to me, completely. And I was learning as I went along. But I kind of jumped in, feet first, just jumped in and I jumped into SoundCloud because I saw some other, radio DJ that had a podcast was using SoundCloud. So I figured, well, if they're using it and they're in the radio, they're in the business, I guess, then maybe I'll just follow their steps. And that's why I chose SoundCloud in the beginning. That's what I knew. That's what I saw others do. I guess it kind of made sense. So I jumped in there. And then since we haven't done the show in a while. The show's pretty much dead. I don't want it to really kill it off forever. And I'm like, well, I don't really want to be paying the subscription fee over in SoundCloud all the time. So I'm going to move this podcast on to a free media host, which is Spotify for creators. It used to be called Anchor. I'm moving it over there. This entire feed is being transferred over there. This episode right here, it should be going onto the Spotify for creators account we set up, or at least I set up over there, just so the show can be archived forever. Now, this is as long as Spotify decides to keep us over there for free. I'm not sure if I really don't know what Spotify's doing. I've heard stories where Spotify has canceled shows for what they claim no reason at all. There's always a reason. I mean, it could be the fact that maybe the show, put music in the show or things like that, which actually the Kris and Kristine Show does have a lot of music in there. It's supposed to be legal, but you never know. I mean, you're really at the mercy of whatever the host you put your spot in, whatever you put your episode on, you're really at their mercy. It's almost as if you're paying rent, really. You're really at the mercy of the landlord. That's kind of what it's like with a lot of these hosting platforms, whether it's YouTube or Instagram or any of these places. You're really at their mercy. So we will see. I'm moving everything over to Spotify right now. This episode should be on Spotify right now. If you're listening to this in Apple or any of the regular podcast hosts, supposedly everything should stay the same. You wouldn't even know that I switched hosts if everything goes correctly. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do right now. I'm just doing this episode so that we can check and make sure that the redirect from one host to the other goes through smoothly. But if you want to find out more about me, I'm still doing Podtastic Audio. You can find it at podtasticaudio.com. I'll try to throw a link to it in the show notes of this episode here, but that's where you can find me, all my links to my social, all my stuff. It's all right there at podtasticaudio.com. And I love podcasting. I love this medium. I love doing podcasting. I love listening to podcasts. I think I just love the creation process of all this stuff. And that's probably why I got so swept up in the whole podcasting stuff. I was looking at some of the stats for the Kris and Kristine Show because once I shut down the SoundCloud side, once I shut it down, the stats will be gone forever and the account will be gone forever. So everything that's on the SoundCloud side, I have to take a screenshot of it and save it in a folder. I was looking at some of the stuff and wow, according to what they're saying, the show is fairly popular. At least I think from what a average show coming into this thing with no following of any kind, coming into podcasting, not being celebrities, not being famous, not being on the radio already, or any of that kind of stuff. We did not have a leg up when we got started the podcast. And I was checking it, and considering we haven't done an episode in over a year, the stats said we we had somewhere in the ballpark of just over 60,000 plays. Now they call plays, download, same really thing. 60,000 plays on SoundCloud in the time we did the show. And some of our top shows, or most of our average shows, were averaging around 500 plays an episode. I think that's incredible. Dude, I think that's a lot. That's a lot. It's quite amazing. It was an amazing journey. It was an amazing fun time. I had so much fun doing this. I learned so many things, met so many cool people. It was such an amazing experience. And that's why I love this whole podcasting stuff. I want to continue doing it with Podtastic Audio. And I don't know yet, but I might create another podcast that's going to be something different than Podtastic Audio, a show that's not about podcasting, a show that is going to be about something else. I think I'm kind of like, I think the reason why I started Podtastic Audio is because people are asking me, how do I make this show? Like, how do I do this and make it sound so great? And that's kind of where Podtastic Audio started, was my love for helping others do the thing that I already love enjoying, which is pretty easy and pretty obvious that I love doing this kind of stuff. Content creation is something in my blood. I enjoy doing it. I mean, way back when I started making like YouTube videos, and just for fun and just content creation in general is just a fun thing I like to do. I like to create things that I can easily share. At the same time, create these same things that I can consume myself. And it's much easier for me to create an audio podcast, and it's much easier for me to actually listen to an audio podcast than it is some drawn out like multi-movie I would make on YouTube. I mean, not saying movies were that long, but I did make a lot of like lengthy movies. Well, some were longer, some were shorter, but they were took a lot of time to make a movie, or I guess a video for YouTube. It took me a long time because I'd have to go on a location. I'd have to get the GoPros out. I had to videotape everything, take all of that footage and stitch it all together, maybe add some music to it and transitions and things like that. It took me a very long time. In fact, I've got like video stuff that I recorded from last trip to New York City that I had not even like done anything with, really. I tried making these videos, but all this stuff takes time. Videos take so much time to make a video. And I think when you're doing video, you have to prioritize. Is it a video? Is it a podcast? Which is it? Whatever you do, make sure that you not only love what you're doing, but it fits into your schedule. And I think the problem with this is that I tried to shove the Kris and Kristine Show podcast into our schedule, and our schedules just kind of like didn't really accept it that well. And there's a lot more to it than just that. But I'm here to tell you that the Kris and Kristine Show is officially over. This podcast is now archived. You can find every single episode. I put them all on Spotify. They're all right there. They should be in the feed, whichever place you're listening to the show right now. They all should be right there. So with that being said, I want to say thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. You have made this little fun hobby of mine all worthwhile. And I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate your support. And like I said, you can follow me at podtasticaudio.com. I'm still right over there, hotter than ever, man. I'm cooking with gas over there, and it's been a fun time. And it's really sad to see this go. It's really sad to shut down this side of my life, this podcast. It's a very sad thing because a lot of things happened and a lot of stuff went wrong and right, and it's yeah. But once again, thank you so much, and happy podcasting.